disposed to follow the example of their antecedents by giving generously to the church roof repair fund. She'd been only a girlie in his day, but was quite sure he would never have evoked the memory of Eliza Spellbinder, except as a dire warning to ungodly women. In regard to the curate turned highwayman, it was Mrs. Weedy's view that he would not have been mentioned at all, only thought of as an instructive reminder to the vicar, when feeling overworked, that it was as well St. Peter's could no longer afford to provide him with an assistant. Even when national interest in the murder at Mullings died down, a majority of otherwise sensible people in Dovecote Hatch continued to declare volubly that life would never be the same. Inevitably, however, in the months that followed, the strong hand of the known and familiar reasserted its benign hold. A factor in this rebounding was pride in the knowledge that Florence Norristhe, the housekeeper at Mullings, had been largely responsible for discovering the identity of the killer, while the police inspector brought in from outside had barked up the wrong tree. Florence Norristhe might not be a native, but close as made no difference to those ready to stretch a point in special circumstances. Not only had she come to Mullings as a kitchen maid at the tender age of 14, she was the widow of Robert Norristhe, whose family had worked Farn Dean, the Stodmarsh's home farm, for time out of mind. Versions of her role in the case had leaked out from several sources, the correct one being confirmed by the postman, Alf Thatcher, whose word was not to be doubted. He was never one to embroider the truth, besides which, he and his wife Doris were close friends, and therefore in the confidence of George Bird, proprietor of the Dog and Whistle pub, whose godson had been wrongfully suspected until the truth was revealed. If this had not been sufficient cause for George to rejoice, there had been another, that he and Florence had come to realize they had each loved the other for the past several years, and now felt free to anticipate a future together. The only person whose nose was put out of joint by Florence Norris's invaluable contribution in bringing the killer to justice was Constable Len Trout's wife, Elsie, and she had the sense to keep this resentment to herself, not even hinting at it to her husband. The constable was a buttoned-up sort, in or out of uniform. His remonstrance would have been the one he voiced on duty when citing someone littering or committing some other infraction.
Now, none of that. This is England, not foreign parts.
Mrs. Trout had nothing against Florence in the general way. A nice woman who'd bought 2 jars of her blackcurrant jam at that year's summer fete and told her later she'd never tasted any close to as good. But, naturally enough, Mrs. Trout would have preferred her husband to be the one heaped with gratitude for solving the case. She was, therefore, the rare exception in thinking she wouldn't mind too terribly if lightning did strike twice in the same place and another person got bumped off in Dovecote Hatch. Not anybody tragically young, or the sort that'd be sadly missed, she decided virtuously. The good thing about the Mullings murder was that the victim had deserved to come to a sticky end. What if next time the body of, say, a blackmailer, a swindler, or some other nasty piece got found on Coldwind Common or in Widgecombe Marsh? She imagined her Len knowing right off, when the higher-ups didn't, that it was toadstool poisoning, not the knife sticking out of the back, which had done the job. Such were Mrs. Trout's ruminations as she went about her daily round in apron and hairnet. She was a pleasant-faced, comfortably built woman. There was nothing to be ashamed of in thinking what might be, she reasoned. Wasn't like wishes was horses, was it? Of course, she knew that willing anyone dead wouldn't be right coming from a regular churchgoer, though some might think it earned a wink and a nod from above in Dovecote Hatch. Miss Milligan, who bred boxer dogs and was very much a local personality, had been heard to say the Almighty himself could have been excused for inventing a headache on a Sunday morning to avoid sitting through one of Reverend Pimcrisp's interminable sermons.